evening, everybody. Welcome to The Bridge. Pastor Jesse Bailey here, and I am with Romeo Acevedo here tonight, and we're going to be talking about the smash and grab events that have been happening throughout California. Why has this been happening? What are some of the things that have been going on? So before we get into that, just want to remind everybody that we keep it bold, we keep it balanced, and we keep it biblical. So tonight, Romeo is our guest because Romeo is an expert in loss prevention, but I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background.
All right, a little bit about myself. So first and foremost, I'm a husband. I'm a father of two beautiful children, and I'm a pastor at Legacy Family Church. And I've been in the loss prevention profession for about 10 years, and something that I have a lot of passion for, and I'm ready to share with you guys and answer any questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. So we've been watching these smash and grab videos for a couple weeks now, and it seems to be escalating. Now, this is nothing new.
Correct.
Smash and grab is nothing new. And here's one part. Let's start with this. It's not even the smash and grab. You got people that it's like walk in, walk out.
Correct.
It's just walk in and then walk out and take stuff. So I want to show a video here. This is locally here in the San Fernando Valley. I believe a lot of this footage comes from Granada Hills. So watch this. These are guys just walking into retail stores and just walking out with stuff. So check this out. So here they go. Look at that. What is that? That guy's on a bike. He just rolls on a bike. Look they're at a Nike store. And look at all the employees. They're just standing there. Why are the employees just standing there? They got the cameras out. Oh, now here's a smash and grab. What was that? 8, 9 people that just walked out? Unreal. Now, this is what we saw right there was a little bit different than the smash and grab stuff.
Correct.
We saw one video of the smash and grab where they went into a jewelry store, but that's only because everything's locked up. Every single one of those other videos, they're just walking in and they're walking out so casual. Why are they so emboldened?
Well, the reason why is because a lot of the retailers they do risk assessments, and they're looking at the possibilities of their employees getting injured. Mm-hmm. So they want to mitigate those risks. So right now, many of the retailers are moving towards that direction where they're hands off. It's called a hands off policy, where they're not allowed to touch the shoplifters or the suspects, because it could lead to injury of the employees. It could lead to an injury of customers, and it could lead to lawsuits of the organization. So a lot of them are heading in that direction, or already made those moves in the last several years, because when it started really after November 2014. So November 2014, California voters voted for Proposition 47. So Proposition 47, what it does, it decriminalized a lot of these events. So if you stole $450, that was considered a felony. Mm-hmm. So now they upped it. Now it's $950. You got to steal $950 in order for it to become a felony. So they did that, and I've seen shoplifters go into stores with calculators, and they're adding up to make sure that they stay under that threshold. So when the law enforcement goes in and they try to make arrests, usually what they're doing is they're giving them citations. They give them citations. They're like, hey, you got to report to court on this date for this violation, which is a misdemeanor. Or at times they'll arrest them and they cut them loose the same day. Or at that very moment, they'll handcuff them and they'll process them, and then they cut them loose at that very moment. So these people these suspects, these individuals that are doing these type of crimes, have become more and more brazen, more violent, and more emboldened, because there's no accountability. There's no punishment for them, for the most part.
What was the motive behind Proposition 47?
Okay, the motive behind it was there's overcrowding in the prisons in California. So the lawmakers, they say we need to reduce the population in the California prisons. It costs a lot of money to house all these prisoners. So since 2014, when this law went into effect, we have released over 13,500 inmates have been released. In addition to that, they have another 200,000 that apply to get their punishments retroactively changed. So if you were arrested for a felony drug charge or a felony shoplifting, larceny, any of those type of crimes, they could retroactively go back and change it from a felony to a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. So we have over 200,000 applications that have already been approved. Now that was supposed to expire in 2017, the deadline to file your application, but it was extended, so now it's until November 2022. So they have until November 22 to file their request to get their charges of felony get reduced to a misdemeanor.
Wow. Okay, so part of Prop 47 was part of that to try and correct some of the arrests and imprisonment that happened during the whole war on drugs. Everything that Kamala Harris was doing. I mean, putting away a record number of criminals, but it was for like low level things. So was this kind of like trying to correct that?
Yeah, they're trying to correct not only the prison population, they were also trying to correct the enforcement of putting people in jail for carrying possession of drugs, small amounts of drugs for like personal use.
Right.
So now, if you get caught with a certain amount of cocaine or marijuana or even that date rape drug, any of those drugs, if you get caught with any of those drugs, it's a misdemeanor.
Wow.
But that has led to the purpose behind it was like, we're going to do this so that because we could give them the treatment that they need. Now, California has saved like over $150 million in cost of the prisons not having to house these inmates, right? Mm-hmm. But the premise behind it was like, we're going to send these drug users to rehab. But there's no leverage to use against the people that get arrested for these crimes, because when you get arrested for like drug possession, they'll say, hey, you could plead guilty to this crime, which is now a misdemeanor, mm-hmm. or you could plead guilty but go check yourself into a drug rehab where you're going to be in that rehab anywhere from 6 months to a year or even longer at that drug rehab. Well, these drug offenders, they opt to plead guilty because they know they're going to get released that same day.
Well,
or maybe even the next day. They'll serve 0 to a day of their sentence. So there's no incentive for them to go to the drug rehabs.
So there's no incentive for them to go to the drug rehab, mm-hmm. and there's really no punishment for them.
No punishment. Correct.
You're out in a day, and they're going to go back and do the exact same thing the next day.
Correct.
So it all kind of started with that. See, when you have weak leadership and you're soft on crime, what ends up happening is the criminals are empowered. When you don't punish people for wrong that they've done, then they're empowered. Now we can talk about the preventative measures, and let me just handle that right now. Fathers in the home. I'm going to be honest. Romeo, you may not be able to say this, but I can say this. All the people that are doing these smash and grabs, they're 90% black folk. 90% of them. You watch all of it. As a matter of fact, let's go to next video real quick, and these are smash and grab, and we're talking like massive amounts of people rushing into stores with hammers that, Romeo, you told me
they broke into a Home Depot to steal the tools that they were going to use at other locations.
So they're breaking into Home Depot to steal the tools to go smash and grab in these high cost districts where there's Louis Vuitton and
Fendi, Hermes, all the high end stuff.
Gosh. All right, watch this video right here. It's crazy. I may pause in the middle of it.
Surged through this Nordstrom's in nearby Walnut Creek. Law enforcement officials calling the attack well organized.
I saw people running down the street. I probably saw 50 to 80 people.
50 to 80 people
like ski masks,
in there.
Crowbars, like a bunch of weapons.
Police closing in as thieves rushed with high-priced goods to waiting getaway cars. Some stopped by officers with guns drawn. Spoke out, including another smash and grab on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and this stunning video from a Louis Vuitton in suburban Chicago, showing
this one's in Chicago,
bursting into the store in broad daylight, swiping merchandise and running away.
Grab. Now look, you can't see all of everybody, but you can make out that a lot of these people here, these are young people, probably in their 20s. Mm-hmm. And all brazen, just run in and look at the customers, and rightly so. They're just standing there, employees just standing there. They're not going to do they're not going to do anything about it. And I want you to share why that's actually a good
separate
idea.
Vehicles.
I mean, that's just right out there, blatant.
Well, just like the companies have taken the risk, made the assessments to say, hey, we can't have our employees get injured, we can't have our customers get injured. So they're setting policies in the stores so that it eliminates and mitigates some of those risks. I tell you guys to do the same. When you're out, like they were in that jewelry store in Chicago, if you're there and you see something like that, you need to disengage. You need to get away from that, because it only emboldens them. They're getting more and more violent. They're using pepper spray. I had a pregnant lady pull a knife on me. So
Jeez.
it's gotten really out of control. And part of it is, like you said, because there's no punishment whatsoever. So yeah, these type of crimes, those are obviously felonies.
Yeah.
But they didn't start off with those crimes.
Exactly.
They started off stealing little things, and that led to them, boosting more merchandise, and they never got punished, so they just continue repeating it and escalating. And now, as they said in the video, they're more organized.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I have a job, and I have people that I report to, and there's analysts, and we have other investigators, they have their own structure. They have maps. Mm-hmm. They go to the stores and they do their own research,
mm-hmm.
and they see what stores are greeting the customers.
Wow.
Because that's the first line of deterrence, of deterring the shoplifter. If you walk in as a customer and they say, you always wonder, well, why are they saying, they're so nice, they're saying welcome to the store, right? Well, part of it is that we want to make sure that we're approaching all of our customers, make them feel welcome. Well, they don't want that. They don't want you to recognize them. They don't want you to approach them. They don't want you to talk to them. So when stores don't actively offer customer service to that level, then they target that store.
Yeah.
They know that store is not on their toes, that they're not paying attention. And it's a lot harder now because everyone wears a mask. So they're even more emboldened to go into the stores and create havoc.
And what's crazy about this is, like you said, this is progressive. You want to support the progressive movement. This is how we're progressing. You go from, misdemeanor act, well, what shouldn't have been a misdemeanor, but now we've made it a misdemeanor. So you get comfortable doing that. And as we know, sin is insatiable. It grows. It has no end to it. So if you do all these little misdemeanor things, if you walk in and grab a $200 pair of Nikes, what now? Let's just go and smash up a place and grab $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 worth of Louis Vuitton or jewelry or whatever that is. So you have this progression of sin. You have this growth pattern that we now see, and it's affecting the economy. It's affecting things in a lot of ways. Before we get into that portion, though, I want to bring up this scripture. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 11, and it says this. It says, because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. In other words, when we don't punish the wicked, it encourages and emboldens people to go out and do more wickedness. See, one of the problems with the approach that we have in some of the progressive movements is that it assumes that man is inherently good, and that if you just give them what they need, they'll do the right thing. Or if you're not so hard on them, they'll do the right thing. Well, the Bible teaches us the exact opposite, that we are born into sin, that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So when you start from that understanding that man is inherently evil, even though we were designed to be good, we are now, because of sin, inherently evil. Now you have to understand that we have to put restrictions in place. This is why in countries like Singapore, for example, you're never going to see this in Singapore. You know why? Because if you throw a piece of gum on there, gum is illegal. If you bring gum in there, they're going to throw you in jail.
Well, I like what you said about living in, being born into sin. Think about like a 4-year-old. A 4-year-old that hasn't been shown to lie,
mm-hmm.
right? They're 4 years old, and there's a candy jar in the living room, and you tell her not to eat the candy.
Mm-hmm.
You walk out of the room, come back in, and the candy jar is empty. There's wrappers all over the place.
Yeah.
Now it's just you and the little girl in the living room, and you ask her, did you eat the candy? And she inherently just lies.
Yeah.
It's in us already.
That's right.
No one showed her how to do that.
You don't have to teach a child how to lie. You have to teach them how to tell the truth. You don't have to teach a child how to say mine and take. You have to teach them how to share. We're inherently prone and predisposed to do wrong and to do evil. It's because of our flesh nature. This is why we need Jesus Christ to come in and transform our hearts. But for those who refuse that, or those who are still in the process, there has to be law. There has to be rules and regulations and consequences. And when you have people like Governor Newsom, he got in agreement with this Prop 47. You know, the people voted for this, but this is the result. See, this is why when we talk about politics and all that stuff, I'm not against people, and I'm against principles. It's that there are bad principles that we're operating that lead to these types of results. And as I said earlier, it affects everything. You were telling me about stores closing down as a result of this.
There's stores in San Francisco that they've done the assessments and they said, it's so rampant, we're shutting down. And I'm talking about big chain, billion-dollar companies that are choosing to close down stores because it's too much of a risk and they're getting robbed every single day. That's not shoplifting. That is straight up robberies, burglary.
That's armed robbery.
Yeah. So it's like you said, the consequences. There has to be consequences to it. And prior to Prop 47, if you got arrested for shoplifting and then you got arrested again, it would automatically be, you could charge them with a felony because they already committed a similar crime. They don't have that provision anymore. Prop 47 took that provision away. So now what we have to do, the only way we could combat it in retail is by doing the full investigations and putting the cases together. Hey, they robbed this store, they robbed that store. We document everything. We get the video, we get surveillance, we get reports. We put everything together so that we could turn it into the district attorney's office and they could file charges on these criminals. Otherwise, when law enforcement comes in, they have their hands tied.
Yeah.
They know that once they take them to the station, they have to cut them loose. Yeah. There's no consequences whatsoever.
And I'd also like to point out, in terms of law enforcement's hands being tied, this is also happening in democratic cities. You got the Bay Area where this is happening. Look at what they've done in the Bay Area. They've almost completely stripped police officers of the power that they have in order to enforce the law. They've, Seattle, Portland, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, we've defunded the police, demoralized them, and then we wonder why all of this is happening, why the criminals are more emboldened as we've completely destroyed our law enforcement system and tied their hands. They feel like they can't do anything.
And we saw this last year.
Yeah.
We saw this last year during the protests, during the BLM protests, during all the riots in LA, everything that was going on across the country. When that was happening, you saw videos. We all saw videos of law enforcement with their hands tied. They were just robbing, burning buildings down, breaking into buildings, walking out with armloads of clothes and merchandise, and you couldn't do anything about it.
Because the perpetrators have more rights than the victims or law enforcement.
That's what it feels.
And it's what it feels like, and that's also what they're thinking. That's why they're doing all this, is because, oh, look, restraints are off. Where there's no vision, where there's no structure, people cast off restraint, and they're gonna go back to their lower nature.
It's just lawlessness. They're just doing whatever they want, and it starts with us, with California. It starts with the voters, and the politicians are very conniving in the way they write these propositions. I know we've seen them before where they'll write a proposition where it says, you're voting yes, but it really means no. Or you're voting no, but it really means yes. Yeah. So when you guys get out there and don't go blindly voting for these propositions, you have to really take the time to research, to read them, to go through them so that you know what it is that you're voting for, what you're aligning with. Yeah. Because that makes a difference. I don't think California voters realize, because the intent seems really good. Yeah. Hey, we want to make sure that people that are getting arrested for minor drug offenses, that they get the treatment that they need. But they're really not getting the treatment they need. They're just pleading guilty and going back out on the streets.
That's exactly right. I mean, if we really want to do something, in all honesty, it starts in the home. It starts with fathers, stay at home. Marriages, stay together. Parents, Be involved in your children's life and stop turning them over just to the public school system, video games, and the movies and celebrities and everything. That's the bottom line here, is all these people that are running into these stores, God bless them, they've had nobody to raise them up and give them another option. They think that this is their best, and some of them only option is to go out and rob and steal. That's the work of the enemy. But that void exists, and the enemy is able to come in like that because the family unit has not been intact. I mean, all of this comes down to the fact that we need fathers to be fathers, mothers to be mothers, accept your God-given roles within the household, and raise up your children to love Jesus. This is all a lack of Christ-centeredness in the family, and therefore it's not there present in the community. That's what we need to do here. And these people that are breaking in and robbing, the law needs to deal with them, but we should have dealt with them when they were young. We should have dealt with this early on. And this is why we need to be involved in every aspect of our community. We need to make sure that we are mentoring these young people. We need to make sure that we are loving on them. There are those who don't have fathers. So what do we do with those who don't have fathers? Who fathers and mothers refuse to take responsibility for their children? I believe that this is where the church can really step up and make sure that we're providing an environment where these young people can come together and receive the mentorship and the guidance that they need, the options that they need in order to continue to grow and be on a path towards being a member of society that's going to make a contribution and not just run wild like this. This lawlessness that we're seeing is the result of the demoralization of our nation. This is what we're going to see. And California and New York, where we're seeing a lot of these crime sprees, we've seen a huge jump in crime over the last 2 years, and especially in a lot of these Democratic run cities where they're very lax on criminals. That's a problem. And the only way to combat that is to get out and be involved politically too. We need to be involved with our families, but you need to be involved politically too. Just look at where things are going right. It's when we are tougher on crime and we are operating under God's principles. When we operate under God's principles, we see good things. California is absolutely falling apart here. Absolutely falling apart. The economy is going down the toilet. We're seeing crime on the rise. We're seeing all types of stuff happening in this state, and it's because we have bad principles governing us.
And unfortunately, the really, really sad part about it, California, you and I recognize, and some of the viewers recognize that it's falling apart. But the nation, oftentimes, looks at California as the role model. Yes. And they look at it like, oh, they passed Proposition 47, and we're going to pass something similar.
Yeah.
They usually set the tone in a lot of the laws that are passed across the nation. Yeah. They use us as the guinea pig, and then they start doing it in other states.
Right. So. And we see that here too. All this smash and grab trend starts in California. Mm-hmm. Now they're doing it in Chicago and everywhere else in the nation. Mm-hmm. People are being emboldened. And it's really sad to know that we live in the state that is setting those types of trends and that type of precedence for the nation. But we have a part to play in that. We need to voice our thoughts. We need to stand for truth. We need to stand for righteousness and make sure that we are operating in a way, number one, that shows and demonstrates the love of Christ. All these people that are breaking in and doing those things, we got to have compassion on them, yes, but they need to feel the consequence of that. And we need to be putting people in positions of authority that are actually going to enforce consequence on these people who are doing wrong. And if we refuse to do that, then we're going to see a huge impact. We were talking about the major companies that are shutting down in these areas. That's a huge deal. In these areas, now we're going to see the joblessness increase. That means homelessness is going to increase. So it becomes this wave and this cycle of crime, because now you don't have a job. Now you're going to go out and steal. And then what happens is you get into a spot where the city itself is now completely been depressed to where it's almost impossible to come out. I have a friend of mine who's in law enforcement. He works in the gang unit division down in Compton. And I was having a conversation with him, and he was saying, no businesses want to do business down in that area. He said the two biggest businesses down there are churches and liquor stores, because no other companies want to go in there and set up a grocery store, set up a retail store, because of the risk of crime in the area. So when you have an increase of crime, you have a decrease in the economy, and that brings in more depression and more oppression on the people that are there. So good morals is good economy, good business for the entire community. And we're going to see that all throughout California as these crime waves continue to increase. It's not just these smash and grabs. We have the cartels moving in like crazy because of our lax laws with immigration. We are seeing these narco slavery grow houses and fields popping up all over Southern California. The cartels are literally coming in and taking over desert cities here in Southern California. And it's not just Southern California, Washington, Oregon, California. They are all over the place taking over and enslaving these immigrants. There's tens of thousands of enslaved immigrants right now who are being enslaved by the cartels to work on these plants because we are weak in our laws. They're being emboldened, and we're just inviting this stuff in. And we have to start voting so that we can stop this. It's absolutely insane.
Some of them don't even work in the fields. What they're doing is the ORC, because all of this is called organized retail crime. That's what it's called. Mm-hmm. So the ORC crews, what they do is they recruit drug users, they recruit homeless people, they get people that get brought into this country illegally, and now they have to pay off that debt to get brought into this country, and they have them work off the payments. And the way they work it off is they go into stores and they steal, and they have quotas. They're like, you're going to steal this much to earn your freedom. And I don't know how often they truly earn their freedom. I would assume it's like a form of slavery, and they're just working and working and working. And the same thing with the drug users. The drug users, they go in, before they used to get paid cash. They get paid cash. They would steal a certain amount of merchandise. They would give it to the crews, and they would get, normally like 25 cents on the dollar. But now they don't even do that. They trade. They'll steal Tide. They'll load up shopping carts of Tide, bring it to the fencing operation, give them the Tide, and the fencing, whoever runs the fencing operation, gives them the drugs directly. Tide in the streets it's called liquid gold. It's its own currency in the streets. You could buy stuff with Tide.
With Tide.
That's the way it works.
That is the wildest thing I think I've heard. But I guess that's why they're locking up Tide, though.
Yeah. I went to a store where they were locking up Kool-Aid. I mean, Kool-Aid. It's gotten to that. But there's many stores where they don't even sell, the Gillette razor packs. They're like $35, $40 for the pack. And then you got the cheap ones, it's like $3, $6 for a pack of 10 or whatever. Yeah. They're locking those up because they're stealing that too.
And it's not because they want to desperately shave. It's a commodity.
It's a commodity. And then it hurts the sales because now it's behind a closed case. So now you as the consumer that wants it, you want the stuff right now. That's the way we operate in America. You want it now, instant gratification. If you go to the store and you don't have that access to it, you might say, oh, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right.
So they take a double hit. A lot of the stores take a double hit because they have negative sales because they're not able to sell that product to the consumers.
Right. Man. So what's the solution here? When we see this stuff happening in our community, one of the things that you said earlier was make sure that you don't go in there and try and be a hero.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. There's part of me that if I saw that, I would want to get engaged. But you were telling a story about a gentleman who did that. And
yeah, there's a security guard who actually, his shift was over, and he was waiting for his brother to pick him up. As he's waiting for his brother to come pick him up, he sees a homeless guy come in and steal 2 beers. So he went and approached him, said, hey, give me the merchandise back. That homeless gentleman stabbed him in the neck, and that security guard died. He fell on the floor. The homeless guy takes off as the brother's pulling up. So the brother witnessed his brother passing away right in front of him. And there's nothing in the stores that is worth our life.
Yeah.
Nothing. So we always preach to disengage, to treat people with dignity, with respect. Like you were saying, we need to love on these people. Yeah. Some of these people are hurt. They're broken. They don't know the way.
Yeah.
They've never been been shown the proper way on how to conduct themselves. If you read, like when we talk about Proverbs 22, and you raise up the child in the way they should go so that they won't depart from it when they're older, well, they were never shown that way.
Yeah.
And I don't look at them as a lost cause.
Yeah.
I look at it as a time to minister. There's a lot of people that I've arrested.
Yeah.
Where I have them in the office and I'm waiting for law enforcement to come pick them up, and I've had conversations with them.
Yeah.
It especially when you're dealing with the transient committee, with the homeless community.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, they don't have conversations with people.
That's right.
You could be the only point of contact, the only voice that they hear that week.
Yeah.
That gives them a words of encouragement or praise for them, or
Yeah.
So it's really important that we don't lose that.
Yeah.
That in us, that humanity in us, and we need to reach out to them, and we need to encourage them, and we need to figure out a way to get more involved in the communities.
Yeah.
In the schools, at the homes. There's so many things that we could do to make an impact in the community.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we have to discern the different spheres that of governance that exist in the world. We talked about all three of them tonight. There's a sphere of family. We need to make sure that we're loving our families and being family to those people who are out there who don't have the safety and security of mom and dad at home. We need to be able to make ourselves available, but we have to be that for our own families. There's the sphere of governance within the church. The church has a responsibility of being the light of the world and being that compassion aspect of working in the community. And then we have the law. We have government, and they are the consequence arm of our society. So we have the church that brings compassion, the government that brings consequence, and then the family that brings the core values that are needed in order to prevent these things from happening. And if we all work together, we can make things better, but each one has to do their part, and we can't go backwards. The government needs to do their part and present consequences. The family needs to do their part and teach those core values, and the church needs to do their part and be that compassion. I love what you said, having a conversation with that individual instead of walking them saying, hey, don't steal. Hey, can I buy what you need?
Yeah, there's a difference. I've interacted with people like that where they're stealing to eat.
Yeah.
And I've had I'll buy you the food.
Yeah.
Let me document everything, and I'm gonna buy you the food that you need. What else do you need? You need a sandwich, you need this.
Right.
There's many times where my wife and I have gone, to different places. We're walking into Subway or wherever we're walking in, and we there was like a homeless gentleman that we kind of adopted.
Yeah.
When we lived out here in the valley, and he was always hanging out by the Subway, and we would always buy him food.
Yeah.
Just walk in, bring it in, and you just bless him. But besides just giving the food, like I said, you got to have conversations with them.
Yeah.
You got to interact with them, because it's kind of like being in solitary.
Yeah. That's exactly what it's
they're
like.
in their own mind, and if people don't reach out to them, and they're always looking over their shoulder and worrying that someone's going to do something to them, you got to bring that humanity back to them and have empathy with for them.
Amen. So listen, family, there's things that we can do. We don't want to come on here and just talk about what's wrong. We need to talk about solutions. What you can do as a member of this community in that compassion circle, be the church of God. Go out and love on these people. You don't know that person that you give a smile to, that person that you give a conversation to. You don't know what you might be preventing them from doing, whether it's hurting someone else or hurting themselves. As citizens of the United States of America and participants in this government that we have, we can vote for leadership that's going to embrace biblical principles that will bring about God's blessings on our land. So make sure that you're doing that. And then as family, fathers, be at home with your children, train them up in the way that they should go, so when they're old they do not depart from it. Make sure that we are keeping our families strong and imparting to our children those core values that are going to develop them into the godly people that they are called to be. And also be willing to open up your heart and home to those who don't have that as well.
The foster care system.
Amen.
They can support that. That's a conduit. When they're not supported, when they're not helped, when they're not discipled, when they're not mentored,
yeah,
a lot of them could end up on the streets. So that's a great way for us to be able to support.
Yeah, amen. And you know what? Along with that, the Bridge and Legacy Family Church is partnering with Foster All. which is a wonderful organization here in the Los Angeles area that provides wraparound services for foster homes in the area. This year, we are sponsoring 6 group homes that take care of the foster youth, and we are going to be bringing them Christmas. So we want to invite you. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can donate to the cause. We are raising $10,000 so we can support these homes. Now, these homes are typically supported by a church, but many churches have had to drop out this year in supporting them. But Legacy Family Church has been called upon to kind of pick up the slack, and we are going to do it. So if you would like to be a part of the solution in helping these foster children know that there's somebody out there that loves them, click on the link below, make a donation. All donations are tax deductible. We are a nonprofit, so you would receive that. But more than anything, do it to be a blessing and sow a seed into the hearts of these children. And really, it's a seed into our future too, because as these children go, so goes our country and our society. So with that, family, thank you so much for joining us. If you like this, make sure you click that like, hit the subscribe, share it to other people, and above all, keep it bold, keep it balanced, and keep it biblical. God bless you all, and have a good night. And thank you, Romeo, for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.